Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing awesome and that everybody's staying well while you're home with your families. I've been thinking about when we were reading The Giver and about how much all of you seem to really love that book. That is, many of you know, my absolute favorite book ever. I love that book so much. A lot of you asked me about the second book in the series. And so I thought that this might be a really great time for us to dive into that. I have Gathering Blue by Lois Lowry here. It is book number 2 of the 4-book set. The other books I actually have here The Giver, the first one. Gathering Blue, that we're going to read, is your second one. I think that we'll probably do a chapter a day, maybe more than that. We'll see. The third book is Messenger, and the last book is Sun. They're all excellent. They're a little different than The Giver. This book that we're going to start today, Gathering Blue, does not have the same main characters in it. Gabriel and Jonas are not seen so much in this book, but I think you guys will really enjoy it. And we are going to see what Miss Kira is up to. Kira is the main character in this one. So we're going to read along. Chapter 1 is actually going to be split into 2 different videos. It's a little bit longer, and we can only upload 15-minute videos. So we're going to read about half of chapter 1 and then follow it up with part 2 of chapter 1. So chapter 1, here we go. Mother? There was no reply. She hadn't expected one. Her mother had been dead now for 4 days, and Kira could tell that the last of the spirit was drifting away. Mother, she said it again quietly to whatever was leaving. She thought that she could feel its leave taking, the way one could feel a small whisper of a breeze at night. Now she was all alone. Kira felt the aloneness, the uncertainty, and a great sadness. This had been her mother, the warm and vital woman whose name had been Katrina. Then, after the brief and unexpected sickness, it had become the body of Katrina, still containing the lingering spirit. After 4 sunsets and 4 sunrises, the spirit, too, was gone. It was simply a body. Diggers would come and sprinkle a layer of soil over the flesh, but even so, it would be eaten by the clawing, hungry creatures that came at night. Then the bones would scatter, rot, and crumble to become part of the earth. Kira wiped briefly at her eyes, which had filled suddenly with tears. She had loved her mother and would miss her terribly. But it was time for her to go. She wedged her walking stick in the soft ground, leaned on it, and pulled herself up. She looked around uncertainly. She was young still and had not experienced death before, not in the small 2-person family that she and her mother had been. Of course, she had seen others go through the rituals. She could see some of them in the vast, foul-smelling field of leaving, huddled beside the ones whose lingering spirits they tended. She knew that a woman named Helena was there, watching the spirit leave her infant, who had been born too soon. Helena had come to the field only the day before. Infants did not require the 4 days of watching. The wisps of their spirits barely arrived, drifted away quickly, so Helena would return to the village and her family soon. As for Kira, she had no family now, nor any home. The cot she had shared with her mother had been burned. This was always done after sickness. The small structure, the only home Kira had ever known, was gone. She had seen the smoke in the distance as she sat with the body, as she watched the spirit of her mother drift away. She had seen the cindered fragments of her childhood life whirl into the sky as well. She felt a small shudder of fear. Fear was always a part of life for the people. Because of fear, they made shelter and found food and grew things. For the same reason, weapons were stored, waiting. The fear of cold, of sickness and hunger. There was fear of beasts. And fear propelled her now as she stood, leaning on her stick. She looked down a last time at the lifeless body that had once contained her mother and considered where to go. Kira thought about rebuilding. If she could find help, though help was unlikely, it wouldn't take long to build a cot, especially not this time of year. Summer start, when tree limbs were supple and mud was thick and abundant beside the river. She had often watched others building, and Kira realized that she could probably construct some sort of shelter for herself. Its corners and chimney might not be straight. The roof would be difficult because her bad leg made it almost impossible for her to climb. But she would find a way. Somehow she would build a cot. Then she would find a way to make a life. A cot is a house. That's their shelter. Kind of just a very small, roughly built house. Her mother's brother had been near her in the field for 2 days, not guarding Katrina, his sister, but sitting silently beside the body of his own woman, the short-tempered Solora, and that of their new infant who had been too young to have a name. They had nodded to each other, Kira and her mother's brother, in acknowledgement. But he had departed, his time in the field of leaving finished. He had tykes to tend. He and Solora had 2 others in addition to the one that had brought her death. The others were still small, their names yet of only 1 syllable, Dan and Mar. Perhaps I could care for them, Kira thought briefly, trying to find her own future within the village. But even as the thought flickered within her, she knew that it would not be permitted. Solora's tykes would be given away, distributed to those who had none. Healthy, strong tykes were valuable. Properly trained, they could contribute to family needs and would be greatly desired. No one would desire Kira. No one ever had, except her mother. Often Katrina had told Kira the story of her birth. The birth of a fatherless girl with a twisted leg, and how her mother had fought to keep her alive. "They came to take you," Katrina said, whispering the story to her in the evening in their cot with the fire fed and glowing. "You were 1 day old, not yet named your 1-syllable infant name. Kier. Yes, that's right, Kier. They brought me food and were going to take you away to the field." Kira shuddered. It was the way, the custom, and it was the merciful thing to give an unnamed, imperfect infant back to the earth before its spirit had filled it and made it human. But it made her shudder. Katrina stroked her daughter's hair. "They meant no harm," she reminded her. Kira nodded. "They didn't know it was me." "It wasn't you yet." "Tell me again why you told them no," Kira said. Her mother sighed, remembering. "I knew I would not have another child," she pointed out. "Your father had been taken by beasts. It had been several months since he went off to hunt and did not return, and so I would not give birth again. Oh," she added, "perhaps they would have given me one eventually, an orphan to raise, but as I held you, even then, with your spirit not yet arrived and with your leg bent wrong so that it was clear you would never run, even then, Kira, your eyes were bright. I could see the beginning of something remarkable in your eyes, and your fingers were long and well-shaped. And strong. My hands were strong," Kira added with satisfaction. She had heard the story so often. Each time of hearing, she looked down at her strong hands with pride. Her mother laughed. "So strong they gripped my own thumb fiercely and would not let go. Feeling that fierce tug on my thumb, I could not let them take you away. I simply told them no." "They were angry." "Yes, but I was firm. And, of course, my father was still alive. He was old then, 4 syllables. And he had been the leader of the people, the chief guardian, for a long time. They respected him, and your father would have been greatly a respected leader too, had he not died on the long hunt. He had already been chosen to be a guardian. Say my father's name to me, Kira begged. Her mother smiled in the firelight. Christopher, she said, you know that. I like to hear it, though. I like to hear you say it. Do you want me to go on? Kira nodded. You were firm. You insisted, she reminded her mother. Still, they made me promise that you would not become a burden. I haven't, have I? Of course not. Your strong hands and wise head make up for the crippled leg. You are a sturdy and reliable helper in the weaving shed. All the women who work there say so. And one bent leg is of no importance when measured against your cleverness. The stories you tell to the tykes, the pictures you create with words and with thread, the threading you do. It's unlike any threading the people have ever seen, far beyond anything I could do. Her mother stopped. She laughed. Enough. You mustn't tease me into flattery. Don't forget that you are still a girl and often willful. And just this morning, Kira, you forgot to tidy the cot, even though you had promised. I won't forget tomorrow, Kira said, snuggling against her mother on the raised sleeping mat. She pushed her twisted leg into a more comfortable position for the night. I promise. We will pick up with the rest of chapter 1 in the next video.